All right, let's talk about those huge, ambitious goals, the ones that feel pretty much impossible. What if I told you there's a simple method to achieve them? And, spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with being some kind of genius. It's all about how you approach the problem.
Okay, let's start with a question for you, right off the bat. Raise your hand if you think you could sit down right now and draw a perfect, photorealistic portrait of, let's say, Brad Pitt. Yeah, my hand is staying firmly down too. It just feels impossible, right? Like something only a super talented artist could ever pull off.
Okay. Let's switch gears. How about this? Could you draw this simple, solid gray square? I'm willing to bet every single hand just shot up. Of course you can. It's about as easy as it gets.
And here's where it gets interesting. The logic is, if you can draw one gray square, well, then you can draw another one, and another. Pretty soon you've got a whole row. And if you can draw a whole row, you can just keep going until you have the entire portrait. And this isn't just some hypothetical idea. This is the exact technique used by the famous artist Chuck Close. He literally builds his incredible masterpieces from these tiny, super manageable blocks.
This whole idea really gets to the heart of what Steven Duneye talks about. He's the guy whose work we're digging in today. He says that what stands between us and our biggest dreams isn't some magical skill or talent. Nope, it has way more to do with how we actually approach problems and make decisions. So, in other words, it's not about being born with some special gift, it's all about having the right process.
Okay, so let's see how this plays out in the real world. We're going to start in the super competitive world of professional tennis. This is all about the amazing power of what's called marginal gains.
Let's take a look at the career of Novak Djokovic. Back in 2004, he's ranked number 68 in the world, making about $250,000 a year. Fast forward just 7 years and boom, he's number one, pulling in an average of $14 million a year just in prize money. I mean, that is a massive, monumental leap. So you have to ask, what tiny little change led to such a gigantic result?
See, Djokovic couldn't just decide to be number one, right? He couldn't directly control his ranking or how much money he won. Those are just the outcomes. What he could control were the small decisions he made point by point on the court. So what was that one key thing, that one metric he could actually focus on that would change everything?
Believe it or not, it all boiled down to this one thing: his decision's success rate, which is just a fancy way of saying the percentage of total points he won in a match. Think about it. When he was winning 49% of the points, he was a pretty good pro. But when he managed to bump that up to just 55%, he became one of the greatest tennis players of all time.
Just let that sink in for a second. A measly 6% improvement. That tiny marginal gain in just one single area completely transformed his entire career. 6%. That doesn't sound like some impossible magic trick, does it? No way. It sounds doable. It sounds like something any one of us could actually apply to our own goals.
All right, let's bring this back down to earth with a more relatable story. This is about Steven Duneye himself, the guy who came up with this whole method, basically because of his own struggles in school.
You know, from kindergarten all the way through high school, pretty much every single one of his report cards said the same thing. Steven's a bright kid if only he'd just settle down and focus. He was a solid C- student year after year. And it wasn't because he didn't want to do well, it was because he just couldn't focus for more than a few minutes at a time. And his old approach to studying? It's probably going to sound familiar to a lot of us. He'd get a big assignment like read 5 chapters, and he'd try to just power through it, force himself to do it all in one go. And what happened? Time and time again, that strategy was just a recipe for failure and a whole lot of frustration.
But then, right before his junior year of college, he made this small but absolutely critical change. Instead of fighting against his own nature, he decided to work with it. He basically accepted, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to focus for hours on end. So he broke down his big assignments into these tiny little chunks, tasks that only took maybe 5 or 10 minutes. He'd read just a few paragraphs, and then he'd take a break, go shoot some hoops, play a video game, whatever.
And the results? They were immediate, and honestly, pretty staggering. From that moment on, he was a straight-A student. This one simple shift in his approach propelled him into a top grad school program, and eventually, he became a global head at massive companies like Bank of America and AIG. He even used this method to learn German during his 45-minute walk to work. He just swapped out his music for language tapes. Tiny change, huge result.
So, okay, this method clearly works for school and for a high-powered career in finance. But what about, personal hobbies? What happens when you take this same relentless, piece-by-piece approach and apply it to something a little more out there? So get this. One day, Dunyer is just sitting under this huge 40-foot tree, and he gets this wild idea. He thinks, you know what? That tree would look amazing completely covered in yarn. And yeah, this is a real thing people do. It's called yarn bombing. But the big question is, how on earth does a guy who can barely focus for 10 minutes pull off a project that huge?
Well, he looked at his calendar and saw that International Yarn Bombing Day was only 82 days away. So for those 82 days, he just used his method. Didn't matter where he was, in a board meeting, on a plane, even in the hospital, he was knitting, just one stitch at a time. He took this enormous, crazy goal and broke it down into its absolute smallest piece.
And from there, his projects just got more and more ambitious. For his next one, he decided he wanted to wrap these giant boulders in a national forest. But he knew he couldn't do it alone. So he put the call out to his followers on social media, and boy did they deliver. In the end, he got packages of yarn from 388 different people, from 36 different countries and all 50 states.
And this all led up to his biggest, most audacious goal yet. He decided he was going to break the Guinness World Record for the largest crocheted granny square. To do it, he did the math and realized he would have to make over 500,000 individual stitches. Just wow. And you know what? He did it. After 2 years, 7 months, and 17 days, he became the official Guinness World Record holder. A world record, achieved by the same guy who used to get C-minuses on his report cards. And he didn't do it through some superhuman feat of endurance. He did it through the slow, patient, relentless repetition of one tiny action, one stitch at a time.
So we've seen how this works for elite athletes, for pop business leaders, and even for world record-holding artists. But the real question now is, what about you? How can you actually apply this to your own life?
The method itself is just beautifully simple. Step 1, break it down. Take that huge, scary, intimidating goal and just deconstruct it into the smallest possible action you can imagine. Don't think read 50 books, think read just 1 page. Don't think run a marathon, just think put on my running shoes. That's it. And step 2, improve. As you're doing those tiny little steps over and over, just look for tiny, marginal ways to improve your process.
And that, right there, is the biggest takeaway. The thing that's standing between you and your most ambitious goals, it isn't some lack of talent or willpower, it's just the approach you're using. If you change your approach, you will absolutely change the outcome.
So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. What is that one big, ambitious dream you've kind of put on the shelf because it just felt too big, too difficult? And more importantly, what is the absolute smallest, easiest, most manageable first step you can take to make it happen? Today.